Hello, everybody. This episode of the Lewis Sabin Video Podcast is brought to you, as always, a huge thank you to Joe Rogan and the JRE, the Joe Rogan Experience Podcast. Without Joe, I would have never thought about doing this. His podcast is available on iTunes and YouTube. He's a very funny man. Some of his comedies on Spotify. He, of course, also does the color commentating for the UFC. Like I said, without him, I'd never thought about doing this. And, thanks. Also brought to you is a huge thank you to Science, the only energy drink I drink. 0 calories, 0 sugar, no crash, no jitters. The unique 0 calorie energy drink. Real energy for real people. The unique formula that gives you the hashtag #Power2. Alright, now let's look at the can and see how badly I did at that. The original great tasting 0 calorie energy drink. Real energy for real people. The unique formula that gives you the hashtag #Power2. Not bad. I am drinking today blue pomegranate. Again, it's delicious. It's a really good flavor. They got rid of one of my favorites, so I'm a little hurt, but it's okay. Maybe they'll bring it back this summer. Who knows? It may have just been a summer thing. I'm trying to think. It was right about this time of year-ish I noticed it, so who knows? If it's just a summer thing, cool. I don't have to wait that long. I'll be right back. I, of course, am not sponsored by either of these companies, although if they wish to, they'd be freaking awesome. When I first started doing this, Joe doesn't need me to help him out. He's got plenty of loyal listeners. People love him. He's funny. I do the thing for Joe simply because of the same thing that I actually do say. It's not just because I feel like saying somebody famous. No, I really do want to thank him. If I hadn't started listening to his podcast, I'd never thought about doing my own thing for sports. Because for the longest time, I started doing this my freshman year of college. That's when I first really started even meddling at all in this. I had done it through high school without videos. I had just had conversations with people about sports, and I would go in depth in this. And people were like, are you in broadcasting? And I was like, oh, no, I'm not in broadcasting class. One of the few classes that my school taught that I actually really wish I'd have taken. I didn't have time. And they're like, well, you should do this. And I watched people on YouTube talk about it, and I was like, they think they work for like ESPN and stuff. That's what they're trying to do. And then as soon as I really started doing this in depth and doing videos on it and posting them to Facebook, which was how I started doing this at all, the draft was coming up, and I went, you know what? I want to talk about the draft. And so I did a video and did the 2000 and, let me think here. It's the 14 draft or 15 draft? I think it was the 15 draft. Yeah, it was 15. I did the 2015 draft on Facebook. And my friends lost their shit and thought it was awesome. So I've decided to go ahead and put this on YouTube and do my own thing where I talk about, as it says, whatever I want. Zions is one of the few companies that doesn't have a lot of advertising. That's part of the reason I started doing them. I thought if I was to go with a company that actually, if I got enough subscribers, which I'm very far away from the number I'd like to have, they would actually, consider sponsoring. And I was like, all right, what companies do I use on a regular basis that are smaller, that would actually go, yeah, we'd be interested. Thought about PepsiCo. They really wouldn't need me. Thought about Coca-Cola. They really wouldn't need me. And I was kind of running, through my mind what companies I could do. And when my buddy said something about, well, you drink the crap out of that Zions stuff. Yeah, I guess I could do Zions. It'd be interesting. And then the UFC pulled them as their big sponsor, and now they're sponsored by Monster, which is the shittiest drink you could ever drink. It tastes like shit, and it's really, really bad for you. And so that's one of the many reasons why I've mentioned Zions. As I said, I'm not sponsored by these guys, although I would love it if they would. Yeah, love me some Zions. I really do drink these. This isn't just because I want to make it look like I do. No, in my spare time, I do drink these. I only have one throughout an entire day, but I have high blood pressure. It's not a good idea to drink like 6 of these. It's just not good. However, I do have one sponsor, and that is Fox. Not given here, not given there, not given anywhere. Today we're going to be talking about some interesting news I picked up from, what is this thing called? The Oregon something or other. I'm not looking at it, and I don't want to bump anything right now. About the trade Chip Kelly had suggested through the Eagles to get Marcus Mariota. The player I was discussing earlier about the Cowboys was, let me think here, when did I do that? Did I do it Monday? Yeah, I must have done it Monday. Where I said the Cowboys were either in negotiations or trying to sign some running back, and I couldn't remember who it was that actually has gone through. I'll talk about it in a second. We're also going to mock the mock draft. The NFL mock draft by Campus Sports. The guy that did this one, I'm going to go ahead and say this before I do anything else. The guy who did this particular mock draft is the same guy that did the last one. I think his name's Mike Straw, or something like that. I'll know when I click on it. It says at the top of it. And his mock drafts are relatively accurate to what I personally believe people are going to go with. And I give him credit. Mr. Straw. I believe that's his last name, Straw, on here. I give him all the credit. You know what? He's actually done a good job. He actually has looked into some of the things that are on here. Most of the people who post to this site, Campus Sports, with their mock drafts are complete utter idiots. Yeah, they're complete jackasses. I think that this team's going to take this player with the 19th pick, and you're going, that guy is projected to go 5th. How do you plan on him still being there at 19? It's just one of those where you go, did you even look? My classic one is always with the Lions. Because I always have the Lions pick an oddball people. They're like, I think they're going to take this corner. And I'm like, that corner is number 1 on the corners. He's suspected to go 4th overall. And the Lions have the 9th pick. I think they have the 8th or the 9th right now. First of all, we don't need him. Secondly, why would he be there at 9? 2, 3, we don't need him, as stated as option A the first time. And it's one of those things where you look at it and you just go, did you even look at what the team needs before you typed in, this is who they're taking? Now again, I haven't gone through this one, so I don't know who he's got. But in the last one I did, which was all 3 rounds, this particular guy had the Lions taking Robert Nkemdiche, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss. And I think he could be sitting there. Again, it's one of those where you go, it's between us, and I think it's the team just before us. I don't remember who it is off the top of my head. That could take him. But it's one of those where you have to weigh in who's ahead of you and what you need. And you look at the other teams and you go, well, they don't really need defensive tackles. Detroit does. So you look down the list and you see who is who and what they're getting. And you kind of have to weigh it in. The way I like to explain this, it's kind of like statistics, if you will. You have this, or you want this, I should say, this particular player, this particular set at this number. The teams before you are who weigh against you, and the teams past you are the ones you have to keep in mind. I'm just rambling on. I don't know what I'm saying. The teams ahead of you, you have to weigh in their decisions. I'll put it this way. When it comes to this kind of mock draft kind of thing, you have to weigh in the decisions and what the team needs. And then you have to weigh in behind that, the teams behind the team that you are referring to pick, in this case Detroit, behind them in what they're willing to give to get that pick. The example being last year, Detroit had the 23rd pick. Was that it? 23? Something like that? I forget. And we traded down. Sounds backwards. Trade up would to go higher in the draft. So 1, 2, 3, that would be higher than 5, 6, 7. Trade down, I would be at 6 to go to 9, etc. We traded down like 3 picks to Denver. And Denver gave us their first round pick for our first round pick because they wanted Shane Ray really badly. And they gave us, we needed offensive line. So they gave us Ramirez. I think they gave us like a 4th rounder or something like that with it. Something like that. I don't remember the trade exactly. I'll Google it later into this. And, again, you had to weigh that in mind. We need offensive linemen. Where they're not interested, we're not a threat to them. So here, we'll give you this because we want this guy. And by the time we get to our pick, we don't think he'll be there. So, yeah, makes sense. Now to weigh in on what I meant by, you have to figure out what the players need and the position of the player. And this is once you get to that spot. Position of the player, players you need, and the actual ranking, if you will, of what player ranks a little higher than this guy. It goes with draft boards. My example of that is the first, I think it was like the second video I ever did. I'm hoping that the NFL Network does this again. They let you try and pick the first round. If so, I will do it, and that'll be my own mock draft, if you will, to you guys. If not, I'm working on a list right now. I'm only on pick number 12 because it's not that big of a deal to me because I go through everybody else's mock drafts and you kind of figure out what I'm thinking. But I was sitting there with the Raiders at 4. I think there were 3 or 4 last year. And I said, well, the picks are down to either Amari Cooper or White. Can't think of his first name right now. I was like, it's either White from West Virginia or crap, I just said his name. Amari Cooper from Alabama. And I said, well, I think White is a little better. We're talking slim margins here compared to Cooper. So if I were the Raiders, I'd have taken White. They took Cooper. Obviously, as we now sit here, we realize that White was injured. I didn't know that. And so that probably weighed into the decision. But that was one of those dilemmas, and I talked through it in depth to again, I haven't seen the video in forever. I'm pretty sure I talked pretty in depth as to who's who and what they had. One was a little faster than the other, one had a little softer hands. And, it was one of those where I almost said, just flip a coin. Well, now that I know that, White had an ankle injury and didn't play at all last year. Oh, well, then yeah, you should have taken Cooper. But anyway, that's what we're going to do. We're going to cover mocking the mock draft, our campus sports, and we're going to discuss trade from Chip Kelly, some of the players that have been picked up that I know of, and probably end up covering some video games. There's a video game I want to talk about. And trying to think off the top of my head, we'll probably end up covering UFC. Probably hit some MMA news. Alright, let's crack this baby open. "14 minutes and 30 seconds before we even got through the actual meat, if you will, of this entire thing. Once again, you guys are sitting on boxes. To explain, so last week, well, Monday, I usually do these by week. It was actually Monday. I went back and I watched some of the videos while I was uploading them, and I noticed I was really muffled. And I had kind of noticed that before, and I thought I fixed the problem. I hadn't. So I went back and I was monkeying around with my settings and my microphone. And it turns out that at some point when this reset had an update of some kind, it set my microphone to like 50%, 50, I think it said 51%. So that's why I was so muffled and sounded like I was talking to you through a wall. I had now readjusted it. It's at 100% right now. So, I mean, if one were on this box, you would hear a mouse fart. Alrighty, let me get over here. The thing I was referencing the first time, it's the Oregon Live. That's what it's called, Oregon Live. www.oregonlive.com/NFL. And it's Chip Kelly's Eagles crazy trade for Marcus Mariota report. Now, the only reason I'm even interested in this at all is because I wanted to know if they referenced the trade that actually was mentioned. Now, Chip Kelly really wanted Marcus Mariota. And in the particular position the Eagles were in, they were never going to get Mariota unless they traded down to the Titans with the number 2 pick and got, Mariota, but gave the Titans a landslide. And it turns out they offered them a landslide. Where is it? Here we go. This is a direct quote. Kelly and the Eagles reportedly offered Philadelphia first and second round picks in 2015 and their 2016 draft. Their first and second in 2015, their 2016 first rounder, and any quarterback on their roster and any defensive player on their roster. What does that mean? So at the time, they had adjust here. They had, without looking, at quarterback. Now, I think it's funny that they said that, you can take any quarterback you want. Well, I understand why not going for it on that trade. You don't have a quarterback. You have very injury-prone Sam Bradford. Really terrible butt fumble, can't throw the ball very far, and is just all around not worth it in Sanchez. But they did have a guy that I personally felt you could take a gamble on, and that was, of course, now I can't come up with his name, University of Southern California. Hang on. Let me Google this a minute. 2015 Philadelphia Eagles roster. The question is it going to give me... It's going to give me their full roster right now. That's not what I wanted. Okay, hang on. Well, Kiko's still on there, so this is probably relatively close. In just a second here, I got to think of what his name was. Matt Barkley. They had Matt Barkley, and they ended up trading him to Arizona. That would be the only quarterback who was on their roster at that time that I would have thought had any value whatsoever. Bradford has essentially no value. Sanchez has even less value than Bradford. And then there was, the young gun there. And I thought that, he had Barkley. I thought Barkley had, at least some value. But, not really going to happen. Probably get swapped that out at a counter with third rounder or fourth rounder pick. Now, when it comes to defensive players, at the time they had Kiko Alonso at middle linebacker, which I don't think would really help Titans that much. They had what's the name of the defensive end? I think he's still with the team. Hang on, I'll Google Philadelphia again. We'll end up with this. Philadelphia Eagles roster. Sproles wouldn't help you. Ertz wouldn't help you. Jenkins wouldn't help you. Aguilar, they drafted. Jordan Hicks, no. Connor Barwin, no. They said defensive, so that takes him out of the equation. No. Michael Kendricks, maybe, but again, that's a linebacker. I don't know how they're even on linebackers. I know they had Arakpo. Don't remember who they had at middle. Fletcher Cox. That's what I was trying to think of. Fletcher Cox. I mean, that could have helped them a little. Carroll, no. Walter Thurman, no. Morangas, no. Reynolds, no. Means, no. Vinny Curry, maybe. Benny Logan, no. Bo Allen, but again, it would depend on what their defensive tackle situation is. I think they're okay at defensive tackle. Not to say you couldn't add one more guy. Taylor Hart, defensive tackle. Nahi Good, no. Ed Smith, that won't work. EJ Biggers. Yeah, you really don't have anything to give there either. So obviously they didn't go for the trade, but I'm just saying if they would have people they could have gotten. The Titans, of course, did not accept the trade. They ended up taking Marcus Mariota, and he had a pretty good year, considering. Yeah, I'm very, very excited for his second year. Next thing to talk about here. This is based off the same page, just NFL headlines. Justin Houston is going under either ACL or Achilles surgery. I'm doubtful for the season. I'm hopeful that he'll be able to bounce back. I like him. He's a good kid. Loves to hit people. And, I like defensive players. I like watching people get hit like that. Unless, of course, it's on my team, then not so much. But, it's one of those things that you got to admire. The Cowboys did end up agreeing with the running back I had been discussing Monday. I finally came up with his name. It's Alfred Morris. They agreed to a 2-year deal with Alfred Morris from the Redskins, which means that their run game is going to be significantly better. The problem with Alfred Morris, sorry, I have an itch on my thigh. I want to clarify where that is. Alfred Morris's problem when he was with the Redskins was they had originally said, we're going to run the ball here in Washington, which would have been smart. We're just going to hand the ball off to Morris, or we're going to run the ball in an option form, which would have solved a lot of their problems. However, because the coach in Washington is incompetent and a complete and utter moron, he said, we're going to run the ball, and then threw it 30 times a game. And ran it like 6 or 7 times. That's not running the ball, jackass. That's throwing the ball. But regardless, they let go of Morris. And I think it's a terrible idea. I mean, yeah, you've got a pretty good running back who's in his first or second year now. But Alfred Morris is hard to replace. So, as much as I hate the Cowgirls, I got to give you credit for being able to go out and sign somebody who's that good in Alfred Morris. The Ravens have had an unofficial deal, and I've been hearing through the grapevine on this one before reading this. I'm going to say it anyway. I'd heard through the grapevine that the Ravens and Richardson are currently in the middle of trying to come up with a deal. Which Richardson, you ask? The one that fumbles the ball 3 out of 5 times you hand it to him. That's right. The reason why the Browns, one of the reasons the Browns play so terribly is because it's the fucking Browns, and they're just bad. But one of the biggest busts, supposedly, in the last 5 years. Now, again, it could be the teams he's been with, but I agree. I think he just hasn't been focused. That's Trent Richardson. They have reached an unofficial deal. I'm working on money and things like that with him. If the Ravens do get Richardson, their run game is going to be okay. I think it's going to suffer because Richardson isn't as great as he was in college. But my question is, why don't they re-sign Ray Rice? Now, before people jump on me, I'm going to explain. If I was a team that desperately needed a running back, so, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, the Redskins would be one now that they don't have Alfred Morris. You know, you can use another guy. The Raiders really don't need one, but I'm saying if they were to get, a backup. Seahawks, no. Cowboys, before they had Morris, would have worked. The Detroit Lions. The Bears now. Trying to come up with one more. Patriots actually would have worked too. And that is, why didn't they sign Ray Rice? I agree. What Ray Rice did was appalling, and he absolutely should have been punished for it. However, he apologized. His, at the time, girlfriend is now his wife, to my understanding. She admitted as well it was a misunderstanding. And I agree, no, you shouldn't hit women ever. But he apologized. He came out and said, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. And you know what? And this is why I find it ridiculous. So he slugged his girlfriend. Absolutely should have been punished. Should have been cut. Should have been left for the year. But Greg Hardy did much worse. And, isn't that interesting? Somebody signed him. Let me think here. Who doesn't mind having a bunch of criminals on their team? Oh, the Cowgirls. Oh, they signed him. So it was just appalling to me that no one would pick up Ray Rice. What I thought, personally, I've said this to several people now. If I were a GM and I approached Ray Rice and said, look, I need a running back. I know you can do it. Look, if I sign you, you have to be the spokesman against domestic violence. You have to have, a certain amount of commercial time. You have to have, maybe some press conferences where you talk about it. That kind of thing. And if you agree that, yep, nope, you're right, I did the wrong thing, I'm totally going to tell people this is not how you should act, awesome. Then I would personally have no problem signing you as a team, to the team, because you would be getting somebody who has agreed to explain to, in my case, something I like to say, uh, which was one of the arguments the NFL made, to the young children who are watching, and that was wrong. Also, to apologize to the female fans, and say, he understands. So I find that kind of ridiculous, and I wish that the Ravens would re-sign him or somebody, because is he a scumbag? Absolutely. Has he apologized and understands that what he did was absolutely 100% unfair? Yes. So I think you give him a second chance. That's just me. The Raiders let Mayawa, I can't pronounce his first name, so I'm sorry. He's going to the Cowgirls. The 49ers signed Zane Beals to a 3-year deal. Good for the Niners. They get you a solid guard. Need to fix that offensive line. And if Chip Kelly can get the offensive line and everything else fixed, perhaps that team can actually get something done this year. I doubt it, but, the Browns and Jackson talk up RG3 and the draft. Okay, so I want to talk about that real quick. Robert Griffin III, going to the Browns. Let's cut through the bullshit and say they're interested, because they've already said they're very interested. They want to talk to him some more. Awesome. Let's cut through the bullshit and say they sign him. Now, I've seen plenty of comments about this, about how he's garbage and no one should pick him up. Okay, if you are a running quarterback, one of my prime examples of this would be someone like, let's see, who is a running quarterback that actually performed quite well and then magically disappeared because someone didn't want to sign him. Oh, Tebow. We'll use him as an example. He fits. Takes you to the playoffs. In this case of RG3, got hurt. And then the guy who was your coach, who got you in the right offense, in the right position, kind of played to your strengths. Again, they thought they could have monkeyed with the offense a little bit more, but played to your strengths. Run the ball. Instead of take 3 steps and stand there. Oh, that doesn't make you comfortable. Okay, well then let's do 5, and if there's a little pressure, try and roll. Roll out and look for somebody or take off. That type of offense he's good at. That's what he did in Baylor. Well, Shanahan leaves. I actually think he either got fired or he left. I don't remember. He's off. Kaput. Bye-bye. In comes, I can't remember his damn name now. Let me Google this. This is going to bug me. I think he actually just got fired, to be honest with you. Jay Gruden. Never mind, you didn't get fired. We can only hope. Jay Gruden comes in, and he says, you're going to be a pocket pass quarterback. You're not going to run. You're going to stand in here and throw the ball. Oh, by the way, remember those 3 or 4 Pro Bowl players we had as offensive line? Yeah, you don't need them. I'm going to give you one pretty good guy, a couple mediocre guys, and a rookie. Oh, by the way, they probably don't understand the playbook. But you don't need them. Don't worry about it. And then you wondered why he played poorly. He's not a pocket quarterback. You got to give him his own setup. in the case of how the Browns operated last year when they had Johnny Worthless in, I think that if they go to that type of offense, where the offensive line is to block and kind of help you move people out of the way, if you will, to help move the line, move the defensive players back, and allow kind of a run lane or the ability to scramble, like what they did with Johnny Football, which now a lot of people are probably going to argue with me that, well, they looked like crap. Yeah, they did. But they did provide that lane if he knew what he was doing. Robert knows what he's doing. When it comes to quarterbacks, and again, I hate to compare people to one another because every player is his own and different. If you go to Johnny Manziel, and you had said at the time, that's a guy I want as my franchise quarterback. We want an option runner with a decent arm. Let's look at the measurables. Let's look at everything. Okay, we decided to go with Manziel. Well, you find out that now he's a bust. Let's match up the comparable statistics. Manziel could run. Absolutely. Personally, he ran a little too much. But he can. Subpar arm. Not great. But he could get you out of trouble by using his legs. Now you match that up with Robert Griffin. Robert Griffin can use his legs, can get you out of trouble, can get upfield, get across the field, run sideline to sideline, which is what you were looking for in Manziel. You want to be able to bail you out if you have to with his legs. Here's something that's not comparable, however. Manziel, throwing, not really worth it. Couldn't read a defense. Don't even. Just bad. Robert, decent arm. A little trouble reading, at least when he was in Washington, a little trouble reading the defenses in his second year, but I think that was part of the offensive line. He didn't have time. If you give him a little time, I think he could get there. He's a little bit faster. Throws the ball a little bit better. And I personally think is the better of the two. If the Browns do go ahead, they sign him, I think the Browns are in a good place. Now they're talking about, okay, you get him, and then you draft a quarterback. No. If you get RG3, you don't take a quarterback. You take an offensive lineman. And you got to ask yourself, what offensive lineman do you take? Well, they just lost Alex Mack, so you could take a center. I know a couple of them off the top of my head that you could get. I'd probably wait until the second round, personally, for that, but you could get them. You lost arguably your best wideout in Travis Benjamin. That brings back, actually, another good measurable for Robert. You get Robert Griffin from Baylor. You have a receiver currently suspended trying to come back in Gordon, who played at Baylor, I believe. I'll be able to check that. I'm pretty sure he played at Baylor, though. Josh Gordon, that's his name. I'm trying to come up with his first name. Pretty sure he played at Baylor. Looking this up. Yep, played at Baylor. Yeah, and it says on here, this is from Cleveland.com. Browns not counting on Josh Gordon, which is smart. And that's what I said about, same thing with Calvin Johnson when he was discussing whether or not he may or may not retire. Just screw it and say you don't have him. And then, of course, he ended up retiring, so my plan would work. In the case of the Browns, you don't know if they're going to reinstate him. If they do, cool, awesome. Now you have a receiver that Robert already knows and can throw to, and has already got a big weapon. So, good, yay. If you don't get him back, you got to find somebody. And I'll get into that here in a minute when I go through the mocking of the mock draft. And who I think you could take. Which is what we're going to do right now. But like I said, in conclusion, RG3, great choice. I'd take him. If I needed a quarterback, I'd take him. Okay, this is... What did I say his name? His name is Mike Straw. Okay, Mike Straw from Campus Sports says Tennessee is still taking Laremy Tunsil. I'm not a huge fan of Laremy Tunsil because of there's a couple things I have question marks on. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but still, if they take him, yay, cool, awesome. Second pick, this is the big one I want to talk about. Cleveland Browns taking Carson Wentz, North Dakota. Okay, if they get Robert Griffin, there is no point in you getting Carson Wentz. He's just going to sit on the bench. And most people will say, cool, he gets to sit the bench, sit behind somebody for a couple years. Problem, generally when you take a quarterback with the second overall pick, that means he's going to start. I say don't do it. I say you go after a receiver. I think you could spoil a lot of people's draft by taking Laquan Treadwell. However, I don't know if he fits the scheme that you're looking for. So I think you got to look outside of that and think about what receivers are also worth going after that would fit a type of system you're looking for. I personally think you go after Tyler Boyd. Now, I don't think that if this was a logistical thing, you're looking at on a draft board without knowing who's who and who needs what, I would tell you Laquan Treadwell goes before Tyler Boyd 9 times out of 10. The reason I say 9 times out of 10 is there's always at least, you got to account for an anomaly of once, maybe he goes ahead of him. In this case, I think he does. I think the Cleveland Browns, if they get Robert Griffin, should take a receiver. If not a receiver, then an offensive lineman. In that case, you got to contemplate what Tennessee is going to do. If Tennessee doesn't take Laremy Tunsil for some reason, that's who you grab. Because at 2, Tunsil's fine. If not, and you don't take a receiver, you don't take an offensive lineman, you take Joey Bosa, and you don't argue with me on that. Because your defense is just as, if not a little more, atrocious, if I can speak English, than your offense. With the 3rd overall pick, they have San Diego Chargers taking Jalen Ramsey. Again, my argument is, at 3, if you're sitting there, sorry, I got an itch underneath my knee again. My argument is, if you're San Diego, Joey Bosa is still up there. Don't get me wrong, Jalen Ramsey has a lot of upside. He's a great corner. He's got good footwork. Can definitely get out. Oh, look, I'm getting visited by my east neighbors. They've wandered past the fence. We're going to say hi to them real quick. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not. Yeah, didn't know those guys were here when I signed the lease. Not that it matters. They're really interesting to watch, actually. Anyway, Jalen Ramsey, very huge upside. I understand, maybe you need a corner. I haven't looked at San Diego in a while. But let's say they do need a corner. Again, I'm itching under my knee. It doesn't look that way, I'm sure, but that's what I'm doing. Again, personally, I say Bosa's there, you take him. But at the same time, I understand why you're thinking Jalen Ramsey. Now, if I remember correctly, I'm very appalled by this. Yeah, 4. Miles Jack going to the Cowboys. Here's my question mark about that. You've already signed a guy that you've had for several years in McLean back to your team. You really don't desperately need a linebacker. However, your defense is meh. So, again, I'm going to say this until he's selected on here. If you're sitting there at 4 and Joey Bosa is still up there, as much as I despise the Dallas Cowgirls, you take him because with each player, there are question marks. And everyone likes to say that, oh, this player has no question marks. They said that about Johnny Manziel. Look how that ended up. Every player has at least one question mark, minimum. Bosa is the one with the least amount of questions. I'm not saying that these other players are worse, that they're not as good. Each player is each to his own good. The question is, which player has less question marks? I have a couple question marks on Miles Jack. Not saying he's a bad player, not saying I don't think he's very good. I think he's a great linebacker. I think that he definitely could bring stability and insert a nice amount of youth to a team if they needed him. However, my argument is as long as I'm trying to adjust my leg position here. My argument is if Joey Bosa is still up there and you need a defensive end at all, you don't have as many questions about what I can do with Bosa as what you can do with Jack. Because, now again, I'm not 100% certain on this. I'm going to Google it real quick. The current linebackers are Sean Lee, who I believe is still hurt. I could be wrong. Rolando McClain, Damian Wilson. Oh, Damian Wilson's actually pretty good. Anthony Hitchens, Kyle Wilbur, Andrew Cocker, Khalid Gloud, and Mark Zioka. Okay, let's Google Sean Lee real quick. I think he is permanently injured. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out much information about this before I go ahead and comment. I think he's permanently injured. I could be wrong, but I thought I read that somewhere. After the emergence of 2014. On May 27th, Lee tore his ACL for the third time in his career after being blocked to the ground by rookie offensive lineman Zach Martin during an organization's team activity, OTAs. On July 2nd, he was placed on injured reserve, replaced by Rolando McClain. After an emergence of Rolando McClain at middle linebacker the previous year, Lee was moved outside weak linebacker. Blah, 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 blah. In the second game against the Eagles, he had 16 tackles, 2 pass defensive interception in the end zone, turned the block for a touchdown. Yada, 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 yada. Although he had suffered a concussion, his performance earned him an NFC Defensive Player of the Week on December 7th against the Washington Redskins. Something. Blah, 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 blah. Here we go. He appeared in 14 games, missing 1 contest because of hamstring injury and the other because of a concussion. So, No, he's not permanently injured. I thought he was seriously injured with a concussion, like out forever with a concussion. No, he tore his ACL again. Because there are certain players who stay on the roster who think they might be able to come back, even though it's one of those where you go, you're permanently damaged. Not to say you're damaged goods, but I mean you probably shouldn't. You should probably just not come back. A prime example of that is the Javid Best with the Lions. He kept trying to come back, and it was one of those where you went, you're just not going to. You just. So now looking at their linebacker needs, Miles Jack is a good choice, but again, my argument is still Joey Bosa is there, you take it. And I'm not a huge Ohio State fan, so for me to say that, Jacksonville takes DeForest Buckner, defensive end to Oregon. Now, you're probably expecting me to say something about Bosa. I'm not. DeForest Buckner fits their system a lot better than Bosa would. Buckner's a great choice. I would definitely take Buckner no matter who's up there if I'm Jacksonville. Number 6, Baltimore Ravens select Ronnie Stanley, offensive lineman. Again, my argument is if Bosa's there. If not, Stanley, absolutely. Great choice. Ronnie Stanley is a solid tackle. Not a lot of people are getting around him. I would know. I'm a Notre Dame fan. 7, San Francisco 49ers getting Jared Goff. That's a solid choice. You absolutely need a quarterback, and Jared Goff is very good. However, you have to make a mechanic change that you kind of made with Blaine Gabbert, and that is you're taking away the huge mobility, run, get away from people that Kaepernick has, but what you're losing in the ability to move and legs, not saying that Goff can't run, I'm just saying he's not Kaepernick. What you take away in the run, you gain in arm strength and accuracy. Jared Goff is much more accurate than Colin Kaepernick. Solid choice. 8, Philadelphia from Miami getting Ezekiel Elliott, running back, Ohio State. I really hope he doesn't go to the Eagles because that would ruin him. The Eagles don't have a line. Now, the coach they just got, I almost said quarterback, the coach that they just got, I can't think of his name. Hang on, let me Google this. Yeah, their new head coach is Doug Peterson. Offensive-minded coach. Okay, so if he's offensive-minded, perhaps Zeke would be going to a solid team. I personally would not like to see him go to the Eagles because it's the Eagles. But they do need a running back after they traded away in the most idiotic of trades, LaShawn McCoy. So I would hate to see him go there, but at the same time, it makes sense. They have 9, Tampa Bay taking Joey Bosa. I don't think he'll be there at 9. I don't see him there at 9. However, if you should slide to 9, and you're at 9 in the case of Tampa Bay, and you see Joey Bosa up there, as I've said now for about, let's see, I skipped 1, so 7 other teams, you take Joey Bosa. The only other player I would think you might want to take, I think it would be ambitious to take him here, meaning I wouldn't do it. Not in the first round. Second round, absolutely. First round, it's a bit of a risk. But if, let's say, you're at 9, you need a defensive end, Bosa's gone. For shits and giggles, he's gone. Somebody picked him. The Eagles got him. I don't know. And you're sitting there at 9, and you wonder who you should take. If you're willing to gamble hugely and take a solid defensive end, but has a lot of question marks on him, you could take now I can't come up with his name. Hang on. I'll come up with it as I'm typing it. Sean Oakman. Now, see, at 9, I think that's too big of a gamble, and I think you don't do that. Not in the first round. Second round, absolutely 100%. If you're there and you go, crap, we need a defensive end, and we lost Bosa, then you could go Sean Oakman. Less question marks for the second. I think I read somewhere that someone has him projected going in the 4th. Like late 4th, early 5th. I don't know where to put him. I have him midway through the 3rd, high 4th. But if you're a team that's willing to take a chance, he's a solid choice to go screw it and take a chance on. He has high upside, but might take a minute to get there. The 10th pick with the Giants, going to Sheldon Rankin, defensive tackle, Louisville. No argument there. Sheldon Rankin's a solid defensive tackle. The only other 2 tackles I could think about that I would be interested in taking before Sheldon Rankin are the 2 most obvious picks, and that is Adolphus Washington and Sheldon Day. But Rankin is a solid player. Don't have any argument there. Chicago Bears taking Emmanuel Ogbah. You need a defensive end, no argument. Solid pick there. The New Orleans Saints taking Laquan Treadwell. I think that that's a huge pick, and I think if Laquan Treadwell's there, again, I always say that. You'll hear me say that about pretty much everybody, if he's there. Because anomalies happen. Somebody sitting somewhere goes, oh, we really like this guy. Oh, but we really like this guy too. Oh, and we like this guy. We can only pick one. You go, crap. Let's split hairs and go with this person. Shit like that happens. Prime example, Eli Manning. Eli Manning originally was drafted. A lot of people don't know this. He wasn't drafted by the Giants. He was drafted by San Diego. The San Diego Chargers had the first overall pick, and I believe it's the first pick, and they said, we're taking Eli Manning. And Eli said, I don't want to play for you, and they went, too fucking bad, and drafted him. And then Ryan Leaf got drafted by the Giants, and they traded Ryan Leaf for Eli Manning. Otherwise known as the Giants screwing over. At the time, it wasn't viewed that way, but as you look at it through history, the Giants got a franchise quarterback who's still very good, and the Chargers got shit on. I think it's funny. That's because I have a weird sense of humor. But, if the Saints are sitting there and Laquan Treadwell's up there, yeah, it's a solid pick. You take it. Give me this login shit. Miami Dolphins taking Darren Lee, outside linebacker. The Dolphins need a lot of work on defense. That'd be a solid choice. No argument there. Oakland Raiders taking Vernon Hargreaves III. Don't know if Vernon will be there. Anomalies happen. Also because I read somewhere, I don't remember where it was either, otherwise I'd tell you. I don't remember. I read a lot of information about the NFL and about the draft. I read somewhere that Ramsey and Hargreaves might flip. That in this case, the Chargers, instead of going, yeah, we'll take Jalen Ramsey, might go, you know what, actually, we'll take Vernon Hargreaves III. So in that case, the Raiders would get Ramsey, which wouldn't be bad. So Vernon or Jalen, either way, Solid picks. They definitely need to work on the secondary. You also need a safety, but I wouldn't worry about that until the second or third round. You got to replace Charles Woodson. 15th overall, the Rams taking Paxton Lynch. I think that's a solid choice. Paxton's got good mobility, solid arm, out of Memphis. The Detroit Lions taking Jack Conklin, offensive tackle. No argument there. Jack Conklin, solid tackle. We absolutely need offensive line. Got to protect Stafford. Good choice. Atlanta Falcons taking Shaq Lawson, defensive end. That would be very helpful, especially because they have another Clemson player on the other side of where Lawson would most likely be playing, and that would be. Why does this always happen? Now that I try to reference him, I can't think of his name. OC retired, so that doesn't count. Vic Beasley. Don't they have Vic Beasley? I'm looking right now. I don't see him. Hang on. We'll find out. Thought he went there. Vic. Yeah, didn't he play for Atlanta? Yeah. Okay, so they also have Vic Beasley. I didn't see him on that list. That's kind of odd. So putting Shaq Lawson on the other side of Vic Beasley would be solid, or replacing Vic Beasley with Shaq Lawson. Either way, get a solid end in Shaq Lawson. At 18, the Indianapolis Colts taking Jason Spriggs, offensive tackle, Indiana. Absolutely need to fix that offensive line. You can't have your franchise quarterback and Andrew Luck getting hit that many times. Buffalo Bills taking Reggie Ragland, inside linebacker, Alabama. Buffalo Bills absolutely need to replace their inside linebacker core. They also need to get a new outside linebacker because they lost Nigel Brodum. Before that, they lost Kiko Alonso. So getting Reggie Ragland would definitely help out their linebacking core. New York Jets getting Leonard Floyd, outside linebacker. I think that's solid because you could also shift Leonard down into the defensive end spot where you have way too many defensive ends. But solid pick there, Leonard Floyd. Washington with 21 taking Ashawn Robinson, defensive end, defensive tackle. I think that's a solid pick, and it depends where you want to slide him, defensive end or defensive tackle. You might actually do what they did in college and play him at both. The reason why, when I mentioned Sheldon Rankins earlier, a lot of people are probably going, why didn't you mention Ashawn Robinson? There's different types of defenses that work with different types of teams. Certain teams run what's known as the 3-4, which is there's 3 core defensive linemen, and left end, defensive tackle, right end. And then in the back, which is the second level, you have 4 linebackers. 1 outside, 2 middle, and another outside, or 2 outside, 1 middle, 1 outside, depending on what type of defense you're running. The other one is known as a 4-3, which is defensive end, defensive tackle, defensive end. And in the back, you only have 1 linebacker on one end, middle linebacker, and another linebacker on the other outside. Alabama runs a lot of 3-4. So that fits Washington's scheme. Solid pick, getting Ashawn Robinson if they're able to do it. Houston Texans taking Josh Doctson, wide receiver. That's a solid pick. Good choice. Josh Doctson absolutely helps out your receiving core that you definitely need in Houston. Miami Vikings getting Will Fuller, wide receiver, Notre Dame. That would be a solid pick. Will's got good speed, good hands. He's very, very much a big play guy. And the Vikings absolutely need a big play receiver because they lost Mike Wallace, who didn't do diddly for them. I think you team up Fuller and Stephon Diggs, and you've got yourself two receivers who are killers. Solid choice. And it's not me being biased because I'm a Notre Dame player. I'm a Notre Dame fan. Will Fuller's the real deal. Cincinnati Bengals taking Jarran Reed, defensive line, Alabama. That's a solid choice. You absolutely need defensive linemen. You also, I think, could use another corner or another safety, but I wouldn't really worry about that. If someone like Jarran Reed's still sitting there when you come up, in the case of the Bengals, that's a solid choice. No argument there. I almost knocked my computer off the box it's sitting on. That's not a good idea. The Pittsburgh Steelers taking Andrew Billings, defensive tackle. Much like the Cincinnati Bengals, both of you need defensive line, and both of you play each other twice a year. Seattle Seahawks getting Kevin Dodd, defensive end, Clemson. That's another solid choice. Seahawks could use another defensive end. They need somebody to help push the offensive line of the opposing team forward a little bit and being able to stop opposing offenses. Green Bay getting Kenny Clark, defensive line. Green Bay needs defensive line badly, so that'd be a solid pickup for them. 28, Kansas City Chiefs getting Will Jackson III out of Houston. I think that's a great choice. And here's why. I watched the Houston game. I said this yesterday, or Monday. I watched the Houston against Florida State game, and you know what? William Jackson III was making plays left and right. So, solid pick. Arizona Cardinals getting Robert Nkemdiche. I don't totally agree with him falling this far. However, Arizona needs defensive tackles, so that would be a solid pickup for them. They need help on the defensive line. 30, Carolina getting Derrick Henry. If Derrick Henry's sitting there at 30, absolutely take him. You could use help in the run game. The only question mark I have on him is his ability to catch. 31, Denver taking Tyler Decker, offensive tackle, Ohio State. Solid pickup there as well. That to protect whoever you get at quarterback, which in this case actually could be Sanchez, even though I don't totally agree with it. They could always draft a guy too. But yeah, solid pickups, solid. I agree with a lot of the choices this particular guy, Mike Straw, has made. All right, now we move to mixed martial arts news. I'll cover the video game thing at the end. I got to keep you here for a reason somehow. All right, first, big breaking news came in this morning or last night? Came in last night. Mixed martial arts is now legal in New York. So happy. It's been a big deal trying to get MMA to come to New York. And the thing that was ridiculous about it was you could box at the Garden. I could have a boxing. I could call my manager and go, I want to box. Let's go fight at the Garden. And I could beat the snot out of you and possibly kill you in boxing. Mixed martial arts is 1,000 times safer, looks more violent, but it's actually a lot safer than boxing. So I always found it kind of ridiculous that, you know, you couldn't fight, mixed martial arts couldn't fight in New York. So yay, finally get that. Finally, big winning decision. It's now legal. All right, so Fight Finder. This weekend's next weekend, April 10th, in Zagreb Arena, Zagreb, Croatia. A bunch of fighters whose names I cannot pronounce, but I'm going to tell you the co-main and main event. The main event is Ben Rothwell against Junior Dos Santos. If Ben Rothwell beats Junior, which is very possible, I don't think there's anything stopping Ben from a title shot after that. And for Junior, it's a big bounce back fight because his last fight was against Stipe, I believe. We find out. It was against Stipe Miocic, and anybody with any sense, minus the judges, who are all fucking idiots. Yeah. Oh no, he fought Alistair before that. He fought Stipe, and he won against Stipe. Although if you talk to anybody who knows anything about mixed martial arts, he lost. And then Alistair Overeem TKO'd him. Oh, that was Dos Santos card. Or Dos Anjos card. Dos Anjos against Cerrone. I forgot he was on that card. Yeah, he TKO'd him in the second round. Wow. It doesn't matter. Reem's going to get popped for roids. So this is a big bounce back fight. I think Junior's done. Kane ate his soul the third time they fought. The 12th fight is Derek Lewis against Gabriel Gonzaga. You know, that should be a really good fight too, but Gabe Gonzaga, if he throws that head kick, night-night. The man who crow-cop, he might just be able to do it. Damn. We'll talk about that one here in a second. The fight after that is on the 16th, and that is Habib Nurmagomedov against Tony Ferguson. That is in Tampa, Florida. The card is... If it will scroll down for me. Come on. There we go. Umar Akhmedov against Ilzu Zaleski dos Santos. Drew Dauber against Islam Makhachev. Keo Magalhaes against Cesar Ferrara. That should be a really good fight. Randy Brown against Michael Graves. Court McGee against Santiago Panziliblo. Something like that. Besh Correa against I fucking love this girl. Against Raquel Pennington. John Dotson against Manny the Anvil Gambirian. That's going to be amazing. Cub Swanson against Hakron Diaz. That's going to be amazing. Michael Chiesa against Benel Darish. That should be a really good fight. Tisha Torres against Rose Namajunas. That should be an amazing fight. Leota the Dragon Machida against Dan Henderson. That should be an amazing fight. And then the co-main event is Sugar Rashad Evans against Glover Teixeira. And, of course, the main event, Habib Nurmagomedov against Tony Ferguson. It's on the 16th of April. I am very excited for that fight. That's a stacked card. All right. The next fight after that is... Okay, so before I announce this next card, which I talked about already, but they've added fights to it, so I got to discuss it. So when it was made legal in New York, some commentator for boxing came out and said, something about how mixed martial arts has never had a big fight like Pacquiao and Mayweather, and they never will. First of all, that is complete bullshit. No, you're right. We haven't had the same money, number, on it. You're right. However, to say that we haven't had big events like that is complete and utter bullshit, and this guy deserves to get knocked in the head a couple times. Actually, on second thought, no, he shouldn't be knocked in the head a couple times, because clearly he's been hit in the head too many times to be that retarded. One of those fights is happening on April 23rd. UFC 197, Daniel Cormier against John Bones Jones 2. And I have a bold prediction about that I'm going to say here in a minute. I don't normally predict a lot of these because this is one of those sports that it's really not worth predicting. I mean, if you're doing like fantasy, go for it. But otherwise, kind of not worth it. So the second fight currently on the card is Kevin Lee against Efrain Escudero. That should be a really good fight. Efrain Escudero, I like a lot. I think he beats Kevin Lee. Third fight, Danny Robertson against Dominic Steele. Fourth fight, James Vick against Glacio Franca. Fifth fight, Sergio Pettis, Chris Kalidas. That should be a really good fight. Sixth fight on the card is Andre Touchy-Feely against Yair Rodriguez. Seventh, Marcus Rodrigo de Lima against Clint Hester. Eighth is an unknown fighter against Juliano Lima. Juliano Lima might not get to fight. Depends on if they could find somebody. 9, Rafael Natal against Robert Whitaker. That's a really good fight. 10, this is the fight that I am in love with. Anthony Showtime Pettis against Edson Barboza. Both of their fighting styles are very similar. They're huge, and amazing kickboxers. So I'm very, very excited. Each have highlight after highlight after highlight of beautiful knockouts and just beautiful fights. If I had to pick, I'd say Anthony, third round decision. If he doesn't decision Edson, then he'll submit him. And I think this is Anthony's bounce back fight. I'll say Anthony Pettis by split decision. The co-main event is possibly, and again, I never thought I'd say this, possibly a bigger fight than the main event. If not, then they're right neck and neck. And that is Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, the only flyweight champion, against Henry Cejudo, another solid fighter. It's an amazing fight. I love DJ Mighty Mouse. He's an amazing guy, great fighter, and I don't see him ever losing his belt. The main event, Daniel D.C. Cormier, the current light heavyweight champion, against John Jones. Get your shit together. This is a huge, I cannot say that enough, fight. Daniel Cormier, John Jones, these two people legitimately hate each other. And John keeps saying, I'm going to get my belt back, and he's going to drop DC. And, the first fight, Daniel got roughed up, and he lost. Second fight, Daniel showed what he could do against another opponent who I think was stylistically kind of similar to John. Not, of course, the same guy. John Jones is John Jones. As much of a scumbag as I think he is, he's absolutely a prolific fighter, and he's hard to fight because of his reach, because of his experience, his kickboxing, his jiu-jitsu. He's just a very well-rounded fighter. However, when Daniel fought Anthony Rimble Johnson, he was fighting someone stylistically similar, not of course the same, but very similar to John. And Daniel manhandled him. Then he fought Alexander Gustafsson, and Daniel manhandled Gustafsson. John Jones is facing a new Daniel Cormier, a different Daniel Cormier. I believe John Jones is as ripped and as big and as much as he trains for this fight and everything. I don't know if it'll matter. I think Daniel beats John. It'll go to decision, but I think he beats John. May 8th. I'm going to announce this one real quick because it's kind of cool. Let me scroll down here. May 8th. We have, I believe it's a Fight Night card, right? Yep. UFC Fight Night 87. The 5th fight is Gareth McClellan against Magnus Sundlad. Reza Madadi against Jan Cabral. Nikita Krylov against Francimar Barros. Dominic Waters against Peter Sabata. Rashad Magmadov against Chris Wade. Garner Nelson. Albert Tumanov. Carolina Kowaleczki, something like that. I don't know. Against Heather Clark. Oh, I forgot she existed. Heather hasn't fought in a long time. Stefan Struve against Bigfoot. That should be an interesting fight. And Alistair Overeem against Andrei Arlovsky. I take Arlovsky. Arlovsky's bounced back. He's done a pretty good job so far. Verdum will be fighting Stipe Miocic on UFC 198 in Brazil. That's on March 14th. Yeah, Fabricio and Stipe, Jacare and Vitor, Damian Maia, Matt Brown, Shogun, Corey Anderson, Pat Cummings, Nog, Warley and Barbarino, Usman Moraes, Sergio Moraes, Yancy Medeiros against Francisco Trinaldo. It's a pretty good card. Not bad. After that, on the 29th of March, is UFC Fight Night 88. Almeida against Gabrandt. Ooh, that's when that fight is? Okay, I can live with that. Of course, they're not done announcing who's going to be on this card. Jake Collier is fighting Keith Birish. Eric Koch, Joe Proctor. Abel Chihio against Carlos Ferrara. Josh Berkman against Paul Felder. That should be a good fight. Paul Felder went 3 rounds with Barboza and almost beat him. Claudio Masvidal against Lorenz Larkin. Vitor Miranda against Riz Carmuzzi. Tariq Safadine against Rick's Horror Story. Henan Barao against Jeremy Thompson. I almost said Stephen Thompson. That wouldn't have been correct. Jeremy Thompson. Sorry. That should be really interesting. He's making his, I believe it's featherweight debut. Very interested to see. Very interested to see how that goes. And then, of course, the main event, Almeida and Gabrandt. 199 is Rockhold Weidman 2. I'll just do the main event and co-main event for that. The co-main's Dominic Cruz, Uriah Faber. Pretty decent card. Kevin Casey's on that card. I don't know why. I think you just cut the guy again. He really isn't that great. Rockhold Weidman 2 is that one. McDonald Thompson is the fight after that. Currently, the only people on that card is Rory, Steven, and Donald Cerrone, Patrick Cote. Supposedly, again, it's currently slated for Las Vegas. I'm hearing they might move it. 200 is going to be Kane and Travis are going to be on it. Right now they have them as the main event. That can't be the main event. So Cain Velasquez, Travis Brown. And the only other fight on there is Gegard Mousasi, Derek Brunson, which should be pretty good fight. That's in July 9th. This is going to be bitch of a weekend. I'll explain that in a second. Let me see. Anyone else who's going to be on this one? Oh, Fight Night Las Vegas in the 7th. So allow me to explain why that's going to be a bitch. It's going to be a bitch of a weekend. July 7th is UFC Fight Night Las Vegas. In Las Vegas. And then July 8th is the Ultimate Fighter finale, which is in Vegas. And then the 9th is 200, which is in Vegas at the moment. Again, they could move it. They could move it to New York. The 7th, 8th, and 9th, I'm not going to be anywhere near a bar that's going to be able to show that. And I'm going to be pretty pissed off. Fortunately, the Las Vegas card's on cable. I'm going to be able to watch that one. Should be on cable anyway. The finale, Fight Night finale. That should probably be on cable. And then 200, I'm going to have somebody come drive me back to town because I'm not going to be in town. And it's going to piss me the fuck off. I'm going to be in the UP those 3 days. Damn, that's going to suck. This happened last year, too. I had to have my cousin come get me. Fortunately, it's not as far, but I didn't make him drive all the way to the UP and back. I'm not that big of an asshole. My dad drives halfway. Well, it's a little further than halfway, actually. Home. We stop off at my cabin, and then we drive back the next day. So I have to have him come get me. Fuck me. It's gonna suck. There's nothing I can do about it, so that should be fun. Well, that's it. Oh, no, that's right. I want to talk about the video game. Okay, so I'm not a huge video game talker person on here. I have discussed video games before. However, I've never gotten into, solid details. Why? I'm a casual gamer. I have a lot of video games, but I'm a casual gamer. I don't, I'm not up to date on everything. I try to stay up to date on some stuff, but a lot of it, So there's actually 3 video games I want to discuss. One of them currently doesn't exist. One of them should be coming out this upcoming year, probably. If I had to guess, August. And the other one comes out next year, I believe. The game that is currently not going to be made. The reason I say that is because I don't know. I'd love to see him do it. Oh, actually, I'm going to talk about that too. So, actually, hang on. Fuck what I said. There's other things I'm going to talk about. The NCAA, college football, they ceased making it in 2014 because they were currently being sued. The lawsuit is pretty much tied up, pretty much over. And that's great news. However, EA has not directly said we're going to come out with another one. They've just kind of nonchalantly done their we don't know bullshit, which pisses me off. It's like, first of all, NCAA was a beautiful game. Secondly, I know people that played NCAA that don't play Madden. Why? NCAA is better. Significantly, actually. Miss NCAA. I'd love to see them bring it back. Supposedly, with this lawsuit being done by an asshole, supposedly there's going to be. Okay, so the lawsuit was on player likeness, which I think is ridiculous because they look nothing like what they actually look like. Unless you were going on skin color, then yes, you're right. They have exactly what they look like because one player is black and the other one is white. Other than that, they don't look anything like what they actually look like. I would know. I play the crap out of that game. Still, they got sued for it. Went to court. They've settled. And EA has not directly said if they're going to come out with it yet. If they come out with an NCAA, it would be 17 now. First of all, I would be psyched. Loved NCAA. Will play it. It could be a garbage game. I'd still play Half the reason why I keep my Xbox is actually my 360. Half the reason I keep it is because NCAA 14. I keep Madden 25 and NCAA 14. I play NCAA 14, get a draft class, and send it on to Madden. Love to see him bring it back. I'm not the only one. They need to bring it back. Let's just say that. Let's not say that we'd like to see it. No, you need to. Fuck you, EA. Do it anyway. They're missing out on a shitload of profit. So, the next one is Madden. Madden, of course, is out. Madden 16 is currently being played by people. I have it. And it was okay at best. Not that great. Here's my problem with it. There are certain dynamics that they've taken away that make the game less fun. One of them being the NCAA. Part of what made franchise mode, or what do they call it on here? Connected careers, or whatever the fuck they renamed it. It's franchise mode. It's the same thing. I know people that don't even know what that is. I'm like, franchise mode? And I'm like, connected careers. I'm like, connected? What is that? I'm like, franchise mode. It's the same thing. Being a superstar is underneath that too. I didn't like that they changed it to connected franchise. Or connected careers, or whatever the fuck it is. It's like, no. Just make it a superstar mode and make one franchise mode. If you want to make the two of them be able to be connected, fine. Then have something in the middle where it's like, you can do both. Otherwise, fuck you, it's not the same thing. Anyway. There are certain things they took away. One of them being that. The draft class, if you do a franchise or connected career. They made up a bunch of people. Well, the problem with that is it takes away from the realism. It doesn't feel as good. It feels like I'm getting cheated at the end of the season and I'm going to the draft. And it's like, you can select Joe Johnson from Utah. And they're like, that's not a real person. It's not the same. The least you could do is put this year's fucking draft class on. You tell me you don't know that. You know who's going at this point. That's something that frustrated me. It's like, okay, at this point, you know who's going. Hell, at the beginning of the game, you could have known a large amount of who's probably going to go. Let's see. Roughly 75%, let's say 76.3% of all seniors from the big schools are probably going. That seems relatively reasonable. Let's see. Some juniors are probably going to go. Sophomores, maybe like one or two. For like a little school if they have high overalls. Something like that. But you see, you're able to come up with that. Like Everett Golson. Everett Golson is a senior. He has 0 eligibility left, so he can't go back even if he wanted to. I should rephrase. He can go back to school. He can't go back to playing college ball. His eligibility's over. So you know he's going to be in 17. Why don't you put him in 16? You know he's going to be available at the end of the year anyway. It's just stuff like that gets under my skin about these games. They don't have any forethought. But one of the big features that I miss, and I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys here in about 50 seconds, is Create a Team. Create a Team is still available, a bunch of other EA titles, but not Madden. Here's why I said about 50 seconds. It's actually more like 23. Anyway, there is a mode known as Create a Team. Create a Team was exactly that. You create your own logo. They gave you some preset logos. You change the logo. You change what the uniform looks like. You decide in Connected Franchise. I'll say that. That way you get both. Happy. The Connect franchise, you could figure out where you wanted to place the team. It's about 2 seconds now. That is something I loved. They took it out after Madden 12. So just recently, because I'm fucking weird, I went to GameStop and bought Madden 2012 for 98 cents. Why? I wanted to build my own team and put it wherever the fuck I wanted. I hated that you got rid of that. It was one of those things that was just upsetting. Because it's like, you could do a lot with this. Now, at the time, it was in its infancy, of what you could do with graphics, things like that. Now you've gotten to high-end, high-tech. You can do a lot of more than you could have in 2012. And I was thinking, if EA needed an incentive, because they're a giant corporation, all they care about is money and not what the actual game is like. They claim they do. They don't. They can give a shit. Bring back the creative team with the same kind of logos you had in 12. Maybe add a couple, maybe make a couple a little more high-tech, but something along those lines. And do what they had in it, which was you can have a bunch of people that don't actually exist and have it listed on strengths and weaknesses. They had one that was like all Madden or something like that, where everybody's got a 99 overall. They've got one that's it's like balanced. That's usually what I used to go with, is balanced. Because there's free agents that are in free agency that when you get to franchise, you just sign them. Where you get a bunch of decent guys. They had one that was like Cupcake or something like that, where your team sucked, which has its upsides, actually. Then they had one that was like a pass-only offense, but your receivers and your quarterback had amazing arm strength, and your receivers were Jesus. They had one that was a pound the ball or run offense, something like that, where it was mostly just being able to run the ball. You get my point. And then there was one that was fantasy. This is where I'm cueing you, Madden, the people who write the fucking game. Fantasy, where you could add whoever you wanted to your team. Not like a fantasy draft where you gotta wait for your thing to come out. No, it was like, here's every player in the system. Pick one. Cool, you've picked this guy. Now, without adjusting who's been taken, because it's based on just who's on the rosters, now you can take this guy, and you can take this guy. So you could put Aaron Rodgers as your starting quarterback with LaShawn McCoy. I'm trying to think who the top running backs were in 12. LaShawn McCoy and Reggie Bush. I'm just picking two names off the top of my head. Fullback being, I don't even know. And your wide receivers being Jordy Nelson, Calvin Johnson, and Michael Crabtree. I'm just picking three names off the top of my head. Offensive linemen varying throughout. Have like Ndamukong Suh and I think it was another really big top defensive tackle, like Marcel Darius. As your defensive tackles, you get my point. And you could do that. Just pick whoever. Now, here's why I think you should bring that back. One, it's fun. Two, everybody that I've talked to liked it. Three, you could make that a feature in online play. Make an online segment where you can play, just like how it is right now. You can play either against whoever and make it that way. I think it's like Play Now or something like that, where you can pick, Detroit against Chicago and play against the computer, or go online and pit fantasy team A, you, against fantasy team B, your buddy. I didn't say B for buddy, I just thought that off the top of my head. And clash and have that be something cool. You create another game function where that is the point. You create a team, you create your own logo, you pick up players, free agents, all that. Make it a fantasy league and play online against people. Make it a season. You get 16 games. You have injuries, kind of like Ultimate Team, but different from Ultimate Team. And go. Now, their argument would probably be, well, that's what Connected Franchise is. No, it isn't. Keep the franchise, keep that, change your Connected Franchise being a player to either be a player or superstar. Bring back the Combine, because that was freaking cool. But actually be able to do things in the Combine. The IQ test was stupid. For those of you who've played Madden throughout the years, you know what I mean with the IQ test. That was just dumb. But bring back, they have drills to get you better at the game. This correlates, trust me. See if you can throw, teach you how to throw the right way. Certain instances you want to lob it, others you want to throw a bullet pass. When it's running, when to shift around people, when to sprint, when to truck. But have that on the superstar. Be a superstar. Have it go through the combine and go, are you good at this? And have that base off your rating. As opposed to, were you taken in the first round? Were you taken in the mid rounds? Or were you taken last? Like it is now, which is just dumb. Another thing you need to bring back the fucking draft for connected players. Don't get me wrong, I like being able to select what team I go to because sometimes I want to play for the Lions, just for fuck's sake. Other times, you go, I don't really care. So have it as an option. You can select what team you go to, or you can go through the draft. Because sometimes the draft was fun. You'd be sitting here in the third round going, shit, where am I going? And then you'd end up with Tampa. One of the ones I ended up with a lot on, I think it's 12. I think 12 was the last year they did the draft. I could be wrong. I ended up on Minnesota. Like all the time. I'd usually be a quarterback and boom, end up on Minnesota. If I did running back, I sometimes went to like San Diego. Shit like that. Indianapolis. I think I went to Indianapolis once. Other than that, that's pretty much it. And those are fun features that I wish they'd bring back. They should bring them back. When it comes to uniforms on the game, I love the old school uniforms for a lot of the teams. A lot of the teams' old school uniforms are really cool. So they should definitely keep that up. The game is supposed to come out in 2016. Or 2017, sorry. It's called Ghost. What's it called again? Ghost Recon Wildlands. I had to think about it for a minute. The game looks amazing. It's a open world shooter. And it just looks amazing. If you don't believe me, certainly I wouldn't. Go on YouTube. There's a lot of people who have trailers for it up. It just looks aesthetically appeasing, and I like where they went with it. If it's true to what shows in the trailer, all the way through, very fun, very interesting. I can't wait for it to come out. Update on The Division. I've been playing it. I'm on the fence about The Division. To be honest with you, it's okay. It's really hard, which is good, but at the same time pisses you off because you can't get anywhere. There should be instances that are difficult, and that's really a segment that I think, was it Watch Mojo? Something like that. It was somebody I watched, I forget, discussed it, where it was like, okay, there's a barrier between games being difficult but fun, and where you're going, what the fuck are you doing? Where you're just sitting there going, this isn't fun because it's so hard. And I think The Division's on the precipice of that, and it's aggravating. But anyway, I'm going to continue to play it, see. I'll give you a full rundown on what I think after I'm a little further. I'm just going to cover one more. The Walking Dead. So The Walking Dead by Telltale came out 2013? I think it came out in 2013. 13-14 with their first season. And it was based mostly off the comic books. You played as Lee. Guy on his way to prison, and the apocalypse strikes, and your car crashes, you're in a cop car crashes, and everything goes downhill from there, and you meet Clementine. A little girl who you take under your wing and protect her throughout the game. You meet different characters, and it's decision-based. It's one of the best games I've ever played. I put it in my top 5 of games everyone should play at some point. And I've been reading a lot of really negative comments, and I don't think people actually played the game. I think they brought in their Walking Dead bias, which is, it's like the show sucks. First of all, the show's actually really good. Go into things with an open mind. That's what I tell people a lot, even though I don't always do it. Go into The Walking Dead, the show, with an open mind. If you don't like it, you'll like the game. The game is very different. It's based more on survival than on killing zombies like every other zombie game ever, which is just about how can you kill them. No, this is about the decisions that you have to make. In one of the episodes, I think it's episode, give me a second, it's episode 2, you have to come up with a decision, rations. Here's how much food we have. Oh, by the way, we have too many people. So you get to decide who eats and who doesn't. And that's one of the decisions you have to make. And you realize quickly throughout the first episode, not so much, actually, first episode, not so much. It's more of the second episode. You're not going to make everybody happy. Somebody's going to be pissed at your decision, no matter what. And you got to figure out which battles are worth fighting. Telltale also came out with, and this is why it's taken so long for them to announce that they are going to come out with a season 3. The Game of Thrones, which was really fun. I played that. They gave a small review, I think, on it. It was amazing. Tales from the Borderlands, something like that. I don't know what that is. And there was one more I don't know the name of. And then there's another one that's like Minecraft. The story mode of Minecraft. Which I think is a little strange. Again, it's Telltale. Telltale is just a cool company. They make a lot of cool stuff. Very excited they're going to come out with season 3, especially how season 2 of The Walking Dead ended. I'm not going to tell you. For several reasons. 1, there's 3 endings. 2, it was that much fun, and I really want you to play the game. You got to buy the individual episodes, which kind of sucks, but I will tell you this. If you get the season pass, now for season 1, I don't remember how much the episodes cost. I think they're each $5, which isn't too bad. I mean, yeah, it adds up, but considering how long the game is and how fun it is, it's actually worth it. And once you buy it, you have it. It's not like you bought it for the day and now you're fucked. No, you bought it, you got it. For season 1, I bought individual episodes. The first episode is free for each season, I believe. Season 1, I know. Season 2, I'm not positive. I think season 2, the first episode is free. There's a middle segment, which was 500 days. 500 days, if you want to get it, cool. If not, it really doesn't matter. 500 days, the only thing I can say about 500 days is that there's a scene in season 2, and it's minuscule, with certain characters that are introduced. It's not a huge deal. That get introduced in 500 days. Other than that, that's it. So, because I got asked that by somebody. They're like, I bought this. I bought the Walking Dead game you told me to buy. They're like, I'm on episode 2. It's so much fun. I think they're like halfway through episode 2. And they're like, so I see this thing called 500 Days. What is that? 500 Days is explaining different characters throughout the show. Or the game, sorry. And their backstories, they get introduced later in the next season. Should I get it? You can. It's fun. Not as fun as the first season, the game. But 500 Days has its moments. It's interesting. And it does kind of help define some of the characters you meet in season 2. But not a necessity. I wouldn't do it. Season 1, like I said, absolutely fun. Season 2, just as amazing. You play as Clementine. It's fantastic. Season 3, they haven't announced much. All they said is, yep, we're doing it. And to expect the unexpected. Well, I do that anyway because that's how your game was. The game was expect the unexpected. I'm very excited, very interested. It should be amazing. Very, very excited. I don't look that way. I'm not like jumping up and down and shit. That's because of who I am. But I am very excited. It should be an amazing game. And that's it. You guys have yourself a wonderful day. As always, we are brought to you as a huge thank you to Joe Rogan and Science. I'm not sponsored by either of these teams. Not sponsored by either of these companies. If I can speak English. I could put together individual thoughts. Actually, that's true. I don't. It's just a jumbled up mess up there. Not sponsored by either of these companies. I do only have one sponsor currently, and that is Fucks. Not given here, not given there, not given anywhere. You guys have yourselves, like I said, a wonderful day. I love ya. Thank you for watching.